the last 10 years, I've been really focused on working directly with manufactured home communities. And so that's what I do every day. It's my passion. I love working with communities and doing infill. So I've been doing that again for about 10 years. Things that I would say make me a little different. I always get asked about my accent. So I wanted to go ahead and point out I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where our home office is based. This is our skyline that you're seeing, and we always get asked about the gold ball. So that's was from the '82 World's Fair, so something a little unique. And then here's a picture of my wife on the right and my kids on the left. My wife, Jessica, and I are high school sweethearts, and my daughter and son are 8 and 11. That's Zoe and Paxton. There's a little bit of things that make me happy. I think in today's environment, we're all trying to find those things that make us happy and make us smile throughout the day, as we're dealing with a lot of different things and uncertainty in today's environment. Also wanted to take a minute and just thank ROC USA for putting on this leadership conference. There was probably a lot of excuses or a lot of things that could have happened for them not to do this, but I appreciate their leadership and letting Clayton be a part of this. This is a really impactful thing for your folks and residents and members for the ROC. So I really appreciate them putting this on. I did listen to Paul's opening remarks, and some of the takeaways that really stood out to me is leadership is a choice. You know, you really have to grab that and own leadership. And I think your residents and the committees and the associations and things within your communities that you work on look to you folks for leadership. And so you know, I appreciate Paul taking time to point out leadership as one of the main things. As he also pointed out, disruption is going to be happening all around us. He mentioned 3 recessions that he's been through. Now we're in the middle of this pandemic. And so we are going to experience disruption. But I love the slogan that you've got underneath your logo, is that we're better together, and working through these things will make our communities even better as well. So take time, invest in yourself. And I think, you know, what's behind you, what's in front of you pales in comparison to what's inside you. So I think we're all special, and we all have a lot to contribute to our communities. So I wanted to kind of pass that along before we get started. And as we talk about this pandemic, I think that's on the forefront of everybody's mind. Think about how the home has changed to you, or about how the home has changed for your residents. You know, a home that's built to take care of me is kind of a new theme that's going around our company, because of how we've seen folks rely on the home much more. They're working in the home. They're interacting differently than they ever have with their home. They're eating in more with their families. I know I am. It's been a really good change for us. We played Rook several times. So the way that our home is having to evolve for our current environment is different. So it's going to change how we interact with customers, how we interact with residents. And so if you're able to use the chat feature, I wonder if you would just type in a message of what home means to you. And as you're doing that, I want you to think about the lens that we're looking at this course, which is, you know, infill in a community. But I want to try to challenge you to think about this from a different point of view, not the technical side, but the consumer side or the customer side. So if you would, you know, take a minute and just type that in as we keep going through this. Right before the pandemic hit in January, February, Clayton has a consumer insights group, and they surveyed about 1,300 customers that were both site-built and MH. And part of it was to see if there was a difference in needs. Does a site-built customer want something different than an MH customer wants? And what we found was there was the comparison was exactly the same. Both customers, no matter what they what they lived in. They wanted the same thing for their home, and the home meant the same to them. And so I wanted to take a second just to let you hear what these customers said about their home before we get started.
And they're telling us what home means to them. So this is a great way to hear, unsolicited. They didn't know we were Clayton Homes asking these questions. They're coming forth with this information, giving us their inner thoughts on what home really means to me. So listen for things like emotion and their emotional connection to home, and even that idea of sanctuary.
My home is supposed to be a place that fits all of my needs, where I can eat, where I can relax, where I can get work done, where I can spend time with my family. A sanctuary.
But my home means everything to me. I get to do whatever I want. I don't have to ask a landlord. It is at my discretion what I do with my home. I freaking love my big raggedy house. It is mine.
My home means love. Love for all my children and my grandchildren and my dog and my husband and myself. We love our home and we're very comfortable in it.
My home means everything to me. I'm so lucky to have it.
My home is my sanctuary. It's my place where my family can stay. We can all talk to each other and we all feel welcome and safe.
I'm recently divorced, and so my home is a piece of independence. It's a place for my daughter and I to be safe.
My home means safety, family, fun, comfort.
My home means to me a place of security, financial security, a safe and warm place to come home at night, a sense of peace and tranquility.
My home means everything to me.
I love my home. It's beautiful. I just wish I didn't have neighbors. I wish I was on a big lot of land. Other than that, I have a beautiful home. It has all the bells and whistles, and it's all good.
Your home is the best and most important thing you can do in life. It's not only where the heart is, but it's a true sanctuary.
So there we heard straight from our survey respondents, and they gave us a good picture of, their inner thoughts.
I think what this points out, is a lot of the comments that I saw you place in there was my home is a safe haven, or my home makes me feel safe and comfortable. And so as we think about the home and we think about infill, I'm spending a lot of time up front really talking about the customer and the home and how that makes how it makes you feel and how it makes the customer feel. So I want us to make sure we're looking through the right lens as we go through this.
Birds and their
sorry about that. Sometimes, we need to look through the right perspective or a new perspective. And so here's a great exercise that I think that you can do with your residents. I think that you can do with your families. It's something that I choose to do a lot when we're working with different folks, because we all have a different perspective. The person on the right, if you ask them what they see, they may say, I see a blue or a green, side of the ball, or the person on the left may see a red or white. So as we're looking at infill from a manufacturer's perspective, I just want to anchor us into something that's common. The manufacturer may look to get an order, to build a house, to get paid, to ship it, but that really doesn't resonate with you as a community, or you as a retailer, or you as a vendor. And so ROC leadership may look at infill very differently, or the local retailer you're working with may look at that, and so on and so forth. So as we look at this, what can we anchor ourselves around when we think about infill? And it's the customer. We look at this beach ball and we can replace that with the customer, and we're all around that customer looking at it from a different perspective, but we're all anchored in that together. So I think that's the most important thing as we start off talking about infill, that we really hit home on. So what we will cover, what is infill? how do you bring in new homes, and evaluating what's best for you and your ROC. I think those are three things that we really want to cover and go into some discussion about. And I just make the comment, please don't hesitate to ask questions, raise your hand. We'll stop the presentation and have a discussion about these things, because I think it's important to hear what you guys have to say. And there's no way to cover everything under into these topics, but we'll certainly try to cover them in depth. So what does infill mean to your ROC? Every ROC is different sites, different number of sites, different situations that you have. And so kind of defining what a ROC is, any effort resulting in homes being placed, replaced, or renovated and occupied in a community. And so you could be filling a vacant space that you have, removing old homes, replacing them, renovating a co-op home that's owned, or developing new sites. We're seeing a lot of communities expand during this time. Housing demand is, out there right now. And so, communities are choosing to expand. And so what does that mean for your ROC? So I wonder if you're using the chat feature, tell me what infill looks like for your ROC, or how many sites that you think your ROC has to fill. And I think it's important you look at the opportunity, even if you look at it as an individual or you look at it as a committee within your ROC. This is a great place to start and anchor in, to look at the level of complexity that you may get into as you start to do infill. So we're going to focus on two things from the manufacturer's perspective, and it's working directly with the manufacturer, which would mean each ROC would be a retailer, or working with a local retailer. You may choose to do that. So there's two different things that are here. One thing that I'll say about working directly with the manufacturer, there are some challenges that come with that. The process, for most people will seem overwhelming, and I hope to show you today that we can knock that process down to an understanding or a manageable process. But it's a lot of steps, and the committee or the members within the ROC are going to have to understand that there are a lot of steps to go through, and how do we tackle this as a team? Working with a local retailer may be for someone who doesn't have that much infill opportunity, but does want to see a new site occupied. And those are things that I think you can work through and work on when we're talking about infill within your ROC. So as we transition into working with a manufacturer, I wanted to introduce you to somebody and trying to look at this from a different perspective. This is Mike. Mike is a store manager, a retailer. He has worked for that location for several years. He has been buying homes from a manufacturer. He prefers to work with the person at the factory, talks to them several times a week. The main process that they work through is working on business goals, quotes, when the home is going to be built, delivery of the home. And so, Mike is, really a person that you could relate to as you're thinking about, well, how can I understand what it takes to infill? Some of the phases that we'll talk about are the relationship with the manufacturer, the quoting process, ordering, delivery, and service. One thing you'll notice that's not on this persona when we talk about Mike is setup, because we're looking at this and Mike's experience with the manufacturer. So in this case, Mike is really focused on setting the home up himself, and that's not in this journey. So I just wanted to point that out as you kind of look at that. This is there's a lot of things going on here, but I want to break this down, make it simple, and kind of introduce you into the journey map that a retailer goes through with the manufacturer. And one of the reasons that I want to do this is like any experience that you have or any transaction that you have with a business, there's highs and lows. And so Clayton has taken some time to really analyze that. What are the pain points for our customers, people that are working directly with our manufacturing team? And we want to try to improve those interactions. And so as you take a look at this, take a look at the highs, which are green, the yellow, which is neutral, which are really no feelings whatsoever. And then look at the negatives. And so if you kind of break that down, the relationship starting out seems to be kind of spotty. You've got varying reps that are treating you in different ways. Your experience with the factory is very different from factory to factory. And then you get to, sorry about that. Then you get to the, or you're starting to request information about the home. You're starting to request information about becoming a retailer, and you start to see some positive things happen. But when you start to quote a house, that's where it gets, confusing. Your product knowledge is maybe not there, or you've got a lot of questions. And so you look at the responses up underneath the quote, which are the pain points: confusion, frustration with errors in the revision process, slow response times, customer loses confidence is due to limited product knowledge. So as we look at this process, you can see that this is really a map of, if you were to become a retailer and start to do infill within your park, this is really a roadmap for you to understand what you're going to go through, what you're going to experience. And some people experience these things in different phases. They don't all go in the same order. But in general, you've got several pain points, several great experiences that you need to be aware of. I would tell you that as you work through this process, one of the biggest things that I see is the service component. And I think as you think about being a retailer doing infill within your park, being able to service the homes locally, having repair folks, having maintenance folks there, is one of the biggest things that will separate the frustrating parts of this and make it easy if that's set up in the beginning. So I really wanted to take the time to just talk about this journey map, and make you make things aware that this process isn't smooth. It's clunky. It can be very cumbersome if you don't go into it with your eyes wide open. And next slide. So I try to make the steps to working with a manufacturer and breaking them down to 5 simple steps. Pick your price, get signed up as a retailer, pick your home, understand the support that you have within the factory, then repeat. So I know those are going through those pretty quickly, but let's go through those in depth. Picking your price, and I think this is where if I'm in your shoes, I'm going to stop and sit down with the committee or create a committee within the ROC to talk about infill and see, what works for us. What's the price point that our customers can afford? This is the best place to start. What home values are in your ROC. What customers can afford. And I think if you've got a good understanding of that, that's the best place to start. Any park that I work with, I use a community calculator. The community calculator lets me kind of translate, so to speak. And I'll show you what that means. I want to transition out of this presentation for just a second. And I want to go to the community calculator. And I want to just walk you through what this looks like. All right. So as you're working through the community calculator, I think this is just a good opportunity, not just to answer these questions, but for the ROC, I think it's what holes may we have or what challenges may we have when it comes to infill. So when you're looking at this, the first place we start is what can the customer afford? And this is on a monthly payment basis. I think most folks, most retailers, most communities that we talk to understand that somebody could pay $900 a month or $1,100 a month, but they don't understand what that means or translates into a total sales price. So this kind of helps us translate that. And so if you don't know this number right off the bat, that's where you got to start. That's where your homework starts as a committee or as your ROC is looking at, getting into infill. So I'm going to plug in some numbers here just so we can kind of see how this works. So I'm going to plug in $1,200 a month. And then your community site rent would be deducted from that. So let's say on average, I think the ROCs are around $350 a month on the site rent. And then you also have any taxes or insurance. I think taxes are mostly covered under site rent, but your insurance number would be over and above that. So I want to use $50 a month for insurance for that premium there. And when you're bringing in a new home, how much does it cost to set that home up? Most people don't know, and this is another good place where if you don't have a setup contractor that you can work with, if you're a retailer and the ROC is going to purchase directly from the manufacturer, this is a good place to stop and really dig in because this is probably one of the bigger unknowns of getting a home completely done. And this will be your biggest challenge as you do bring in new homes, is navigating this process. So as you break this down, a single section home usually costs between $8,000 to $10,000 to set up, and that's a foundation, that's skirting, decks, utilities, getting some of your dirt work done, a little bit of landscaping. And then a multi-section home usually is anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000, depending on the level of amenities that you may put into it. So I'm going to put in here $12,000, just be right in the middle. And you also have a sales tax that gets paid on the home when it gets sold to the consumer. And so you have to know that. And these are a lot of good questions that help you go through this process. I'm going to just lower the number here a little bit. 3% is about $2,200. Every state is different. Every county is different. So you'll have to look for that information within your state. So as you drop down and you fill this information out, now it kind of comes to the mortgage part. And it poses the question, if you are going to bring a home into your community, how is the customer going to get financing on that? What mortgage lenders are available? Who can the ROC reach out to have this support with them? And so if you can't answer that question, again, as you're walking through this is another great place to stop and say, we need to reach out to some of our resources and see who we could use for the mortgage for a customer. Sometimes local banks will do that. There's probably resources within the ROC network that can also help. You also have your technical assistance providers that would be glad to answer this question on how others have done it. But as you see, as we walk through these numbers, it leaves a mortgage amount of $800 a month. So let me just walk back up how I got there. We took the $1,200 that the customer can afford, we minus the $350, and we minus the $50 for insurance, which left us that $800. So that would make a loan amount of $75,000. But you have to ask yourself, what is the interest rate? What is the term? And what are the parameters around that? And so I'm going to leave these probably where they're at, a little bit high, just so you can see what this is. If the amount goes over $50,000, you typically see a longer term. This says you could go 23 years on that. So you can see that just makes the amount of the loan go up, which means you get more house. If you lowered that, obviously you can go down. I'll go back to 15 there. And then if you look at the bottom where it says invoice amount, this is the number that you guys need to focus on and target, because this is what's going to help you talk directly to the manufacturer. So $59,118 is the amount that the home needs to ship from the manufacturer to your ROC community. And so that is where we really, that's the number we're searching for. So then you're able to say, well, what can I get from that? What is a $59,000 home cost? And so this is a great place to start understanding this calculator, how it works. The sales price that's above that is really just taking all of your costs associated. So that's the invoice amount, your setup, your taxes, any of the fees that are in there, and it's marking it up 10%. And so that's just a good general rule of thumb, 10% markup. So as you look at this, I want to pause here because I think this could be a little bit confusing. And Kate, if you could maybe open it up for any questions that anybody may have.
Sure, folks. I'm going to unmute folks so that you can jump in. And if I miss you and you want to jump in, put something in the chat, please.
Anybody have any questions? Are you connecting with this? Is it confusing? Is it what you thought it was going to be? Any feedback that you can give? All right.
I think this is sorry, Tina, go ahead.
Sorry, this is, Tina from Decasa Village. So this program is something that you're willing to allow the ROCs, the co-ops here, to use to try to figure out the best remedy or affordability for a home and moving it in. Some of the issues that we have could be regional, because in the region that I'm in, banks don't touch homes on leased land. It's very difficult, and the few that do are very predatory, very high expensive interest rates. So that is our biggest issue with the infill. It's not necessarily the ability to get the homes, but as much as getting them financed and that whole connecting it all together. Yeah,
I mean, that's right. I think this tool is web-based. And so if you'll look right here where I've got my cursor, you can go to ClaytonCommunityCalculator.com. And it's just a web-based website that has this form fill on here. You can play with it at any time that you want to. And so, again, the reason that I use this is it helps me navigate. It helps me translate between what your customer can afford on a monthly basis down to what home should I provide you? How should I direct you? And so, when you're filling this out, and let's say you put in here, all in, your customer can only afford $800. When you scroll down, you can see that the invoice goes dramatically down. We went from a $59,000 invoice to a $23,000 invoice. In a lot of markets, that may not be something that can happen from a manufacturer. That price point doesn't exist. South, and where I'm from in Tennessee, we've got a handful of facilities that can ship a very small home at that amount. But again, this just navigates you. And if you think that the mortgage and the lending and having access to that is your issue, this is a great place that if you stop and you talk with your ROC, your committee, your TA provider, and any resources that you may have, the manufacturers may know of things in your area and our local banks that may be able to provide some financing. So these are just good things to be aware of as you work through the process, if that makes sense. So thank you for pointing that out. I think that's important for everybody to kind of understand. It's not just bringing in the homes, because in some instances, bringing in the home could be easy. It's the other processes that go along with it. Was there another question right before Tina?
I was just going to comment that this calculator is definitely very helpful. Something that I've used in working with groups and with communities, and as Aaron mentioned, it's to get an approximation of what as a cooperative you might be able to afford, and what an individual who's seeking to purchase a home might be able to afford. And regarding the financing, that is something that we're focusing on at a national level. I know that some states like Minnesota, New Hampshire, even Massachusetts have sort of developed at a local nonprofit lending institution level for cooperative development, revolving lines of credit for cooperatives to utilize in purchasing homes, placing homes, and selling homes, which has been pretty instrumental. New Hampshire has been able to do single family financing, partly because manufactured housing is viewed as real estate in New Hampshire as opposed to personal property. So I would recommend working with your technical assistance provider if you're aware of any local nonprofit lending institutions or credit unions or cooperative development institutions that might be able to provide financing. Squeaky wheel kind of gets the grease, when it comes to that. So work with your resources, and I'd be happy to assist in that as well, because that is a huge barrier and one we're trying to address at a national level, but it can also start at a local level too.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to switch back over to the presentation here. So as you're sitting down with your ROC and talking about infill, I always start with a community calculator, and it really just sets you up for success and not getting too far down the path and it's something not working out or something not making sense. A little bit of delay on my screen from changing slides there. There we go. The next part, if you're working directly with a manufacturer, is getting a dealer's license. Some states require this, some states don't. And so there's several resources that you have. Most of the manufacturers will know what states require that dealer's license and which states don't. You also can go to the state's Manufactured Housing Association. There's some great folks there at each of these associations that can help you as well. So when you talk about getting a dealer's license, what that generally requires you to do is someone at the ROC would need to take a test, fill out some paperwork, and really set up the responsibility of the ROC for being the dealer in that process. And so, that's one of the bigger hurdles that I think that you would have to go through as a ROC and as a community is, do we need to go through this process? Can we go through this process, and do we have the right folks that can dedicate the time to do this? The second thing about working with a manufacturer is just really signing an agreement, sales and service agreement. I think this really helps everyone understand responsibilities. I know for Clayton and other manufacturers that are out there, they have similar agreements, but it really outlines what is the responsibility of a retailer who's buying from the manufacturer, and what is the responsibility of the manufacturer. So a lot of questions will come up about warranty. What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if the water heater quits working within the first year? And so these agreements really navigate this relationship to help us all go back to something that we've looked at, we've worked through, and it helps us, really stay grounded as we encounter any type of issues or opportunities that you have with the relationship. This is the fun part and the easy part, in my opinion. We've kind of, spent the time doing the legwork on the calculator. We understand what our customers can afford. We've done some research and marketing to understand that the market will bear the price point that we're bringing in there. And so we're starting to work with the manufacturer to say, what homes do you have at this price point? And I think that's where you really get to, have fun and pick some things out. You get to pick the floor plan colors and countertops and those things. Working with manufacturers on these types of things is generally pretty easy. I know for Clayton, all of our facilities work with designers, so it's not like you have to pick everything. You can say, I want this look, or I like this package, and we're able to put that on most homes. manufacturers are very easy to work with in helping pick the home. So I would tell you that that is one of the easiest things to do. But there are some technical things when it comes to picking your home. And so this goes into knowing your community. What is the electrical hookup? Does it have gas? Does it need a gas furnace or a gas stove because it's a 100 amp electric service panel? And so when you get into some of the technical things, walking the sites, measuring the site, making sure you got the right home, that it fits on the site that's available is important. And so some of those technical things that you'll have to get into really aren't hard to get. It's just you got to know the right things to collect. And generally utilities and size of home are some of your main things. But you also may need to talk with your local building inspectors. Is there any ordinances or building restrictions that you may have to make sure that your home has? I'll give you an example. There's a community in Georgia and they require in that county at least a 512 roof pitch or greater. And so it's not a manufacturing requirement, but it is a local requirement. And so knowing both what your community and the local may require are important things as you're going through the home selection process. The next thing on working with the manufacturer directly is what support do you get as a retailer or as a community going through this process, and how can they help you? One of the biggest steps that you need to make sure that you get, whether it's from Clayton or any other competitor that we have, is getting your ROC, your committee, whoever's going to be managing this process, getting them training, spending some time with the rep and understanding what your options are, understanding the requirements for placing an order. How do you pay for the home? You know, when a home gets delivered, what is that check-in process like? And so those are things that I would tell you that are worth spending time in and understanding what that process looks like for your particular ROC. I just hit on delivery check-in. One of the most important things that I think when a home delivers is that you actually spend the time and look over it. You know, you take a look at what you've received, what shape it's come in, and you make notes and you communicate that back. This is done for a lot of reasons. Typically, time is money, as we all know. And so you want to get this home set up and you want to get the things that are maybe damaged or don't look great aesthetically or may need to be changed out. Those things need to get replaced and communicated back to the manufacturer pretty quickly. And so there's ways that you can do that. And that first part of that is that delivery check-in. So that's one thing that I would really stress to you as you work through that process. And then at the very end there, customer care. Every manufacturer has a customer care manual that you're able to walk the customer through. There's videos usually associated with warranty items. So while the manufacturer may build the home, they may not warranty as a manufacturer the appliances, but those would be warranted by the actual appliance manufacturer. So for example, we put Frigidaire appliances in our homes. While we didn't build that Frigidaire refrigerator, Frigidaire offers a separate warranty outside of Clayton. And there's many things throughout the home that have a warranty, the water heater, the shingles, the siding, all of those things come with separate warranties over and above the manufacturer's warranty. So understanding how to take care of those items and how to educate your customer on when things do occur, how do we get those resolved? And I think spending time doing that is important. And so understanding the support network that you have to help you through this process is paramount to bringing homes in through infill. And then, you know, we've kind of summarized that, but step 5 is kind of repeat. I know that's sounds like, again, a very daunting process. But again, using the chat feature, tell me how you feel after hearing this process? Does it sound overwhelming? Does it sound like you need more information? We don't have it all. We need to do a deep dive. And so, take a look at that and tell me how you're feeling through this process. It'll help with some great feedback that we can provide after this conference and really get you some more information as you need on this process. So as we kind of transition off of working directly with the manufacturer, I want to kind of combine two things in one here. So this next person that I want to introduce you to is Mary. And Mary's our customer that's going to be living within the ROC. And so you've got two ways to work with Mary. One is you can be the retailer yourself, or you can work with a retailer locally. And so I want to walk you through Mary's journey with the retailer, whether that's you or someone local, and let you understand what she's looking at. I'll just read you a little brief description on Mary. Mary is open and friendly and wants to upgrade her living situation by taking advantage of some necessary changes. She is ready to add more space for her growing kids, but is also thinking about a future without them at the home. She is extremely comfortable with the ideal of owning another manufactured home. She's very organized and likes being in charge. She gives her best in everything she does. She considers herself a resilient person. She always looks on the bright side of things and doesn't like to explore the negative outcomes or possibilities. Having it made for Mary means making the most out of the changes in life. And so when you think about the retail process, we went through working directly with the manufacturer. The customer working with the retailer kind of goes through 4 different phases. There's an exploring phase of, looking at the homes that are available. There's a selection process that goes on, purchasing, and then post-purchase. And so you can see the different phases. Much like the manufacturing map or the journey map, here's what the customer experienced. There's highs and lows throughout this process. There's pain points and there's opportunities to provide things on those pain points. So again, when you think about customers finding a home, whether it's going to be you being the retailer or working with a local retailer, how do they know you're going to offer a site available? Where do they visit? Who do they schedule that visit with? As we just talked about just a minute ago, what are the financing options available to this customer? When you go to order a home for a customer, or if it's a spec home, you already have that there, but this is more of a working directly with the retailer and ordering a home for the customer, getting that quote, communicating exactly what the customer wanted. If they were to pick colors, pick appliance colors, countertop colors, flooring colors. And then, as you look out throughout this process, you can see the opportunities that you've got. We'll make these maps available to you and things that you can, again, talk about internally with your ROC, weigh out the pros and cons as you think about is being a retailer the right way to go, or is working with a local retailer the right thing for your ROC? And then again, I'll hit on the service visits and the post-warranty work. This last section seems to be our biggest challenge. And I think it's really helping the customer understand this journey. A customer buying a new home is going to experience some issues. But I think if you set the process up, you walk them through your process, I think it really gives them some comfort. I've heard one of our managers say, you're going to experience 3 to 7 problems throughout this journey, and here are where they're generally at. But I want you to know that I'm going to be here to help you through those issues. I'm going to work with a manufacturer, or I'm going to work with a service person to fix those issues. And when those occur, they're generally not as surprised, and they know exactly what to do. Well, I need to call Mike, the retailer, or somebody that's responsible at the ROC to help me work through this issue. And I think those things really make a difference for the overall customer experience as you walk through this. So what's next? We're kind of leaning up, got about 15 minutes left. And I know there's a lot of questions that you're still going to have. Every ROC is not, is probably different. They have different needs. They have different number of vacant spaces. And so what I would like to do is really encourage you to understand what your opportunity is, discuss possibilities with your ROC on infill, and whether you have one of these situations here. And then I'd like to offer each of you a one-on-one consultation with your ROC, or we can also pull in the technical assistance provider as well, and work through this situation that you all have and what may be the best scenario for you. It could be a scenario where we don't have a manufacturing facility in that area, but there is one of our competitors that's close, and I would like to share that information with you. In general, there's about 130 manufacturers across the country and about 2,000 retailers that sell homes that they buy from manufacturers. And so there's a large network of folks that could help you, whether it's Clayton or anyone else. I'm sure they'd be glad to work with you. So I wanted to pass on my information. You can contact me. That's my cell phone number or my email address. And again, I'll send this presentation out through the ROC and through this institute. You have a copy of this. And if there's anything that you do have questions on, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I would like to again pause real quick and just ask if there's any questions that have come up throughout this process on infill, and if this infill opportunity is right for your ROC. Doesn't sound like there's any questions. So think about, as we kind of end our presentation, think about your experiences with brands, what that looks like. Are there certain brands that you have a really good experience with? How does that make you feel when you have a good experience? As we anchor around the customer, that's where we started. We anchor around the customer, and you're thinking with your ROC or the committee that is going to think about doing infill within your community. When we center around the customer, I think we tend to make better decisions for our long term. I think gathering information is how we make those decisions. And so when you think about your experiences and you share that with other members of your committee that are making these decisions, I think it helps you think about what is the best way that we can serve our resident or our future resident when they're working with us. So if you are using the chat feature and can write some notes in there, that'd be great. Just really getting the conversation, keeping the conversation going about the customer and the experience. Clayton has 5 values that we feel are kind of the forefront of when we're dealing with customers. We want to be easy, transparent, responsive, personalized, and make them feel valuable. So as we focus on how we serve our customers, these are the 5, we call it CX focus values that are our guiding post. We lean on these to make our decisions with customers. These may be things that would help you as you're all trying to make decisions on infill. And then I'll leave you with this. As we looked at those journey maps, you see the highs and lows. And what typically happens is we remember the really negative things and we remember the really positive things. And then it brings out emotions, and those emotions connect us with memories. And so as you see these pictures, I'm sure you're already thinking about something that's happened, a vacation that you went on, or something that's happened in our country that still resonates with us today, or you know, a marriage of a loved one. Those memories of those events really stand out to us. I want you to watch this video real quick.
There's a puzzle about our memories of experiences. Let's call it the Disney paradox. And if you've been to one of the Disney theme parks, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If we were to sample your happiness level at, say, a couple of dozen different moments over the course of your park visit, my guess is that in a majority of those moments, you would actually be happier sitting on your couch at home. It's less humid there, less crowded. You can get a hot dog for less than $10. But as we reflect on our park visit, it might be one of the highlights of the year. Why is that? Well, psychologists know that our memories of our experiences are not really fair. You know, we don't just take an average of our moment-by-moment sensations when we reflect on our experiences. Rather, we remember snippets, scenes, moments. And in particular, there are two moments that we disproportionately remember. The peak of the experience, which is either the best or the worst moment, and the ending. So when we look back on Disney, we tend to remember the roller coaster moments, the sweet family moments, the surprises, but we don't recall that moment-to-moment sweatiness and irritability. Now, when we talk about creating better experiences for the people we care about, whether that's our customers, our patients, our students, or our kids, what this means is that we're really talking about creating better moments. Great experiences hinge on peak moments. But there's a problem, because we're not trained to build peak moments. We're trained to fix problems. We think that to create better experiences, we take a survey and we collect all the complaints and criticisms and we fix those things. But fixing problems doesn't make people happy. Fixing problems whelms people. Not overwhelms, not underwhelms, whelms. If you drive down a stretch of the road with no potholes at all, you're not ecstatic, you're whelmed. If your cable TV functions exactly as it's supposed to, you're not happy, you're whelmed. So if this is the reaction that we want from people, we need to start building peaks. Let me give you an example. There's a hotel in Los Angeles called the Magic Castle. You're seeing scenes of it here. It's not a lot to look at, is it? The amenities aren't that great. Would you be surprised if I told you this is the #2 rated hotel in Los Angeles based on thousands of reviews on TripAdvisor? How could that be true? There's a phone by the pool. It's cherry red. You pick up the handset, you hold it up to your ear. Someone answers and says, "Popsicle hotline, may I help you?" You can order up grape or cherry or orange popsicles delivered to you at poolside by someone on a silver tray wearing gloves like an English butler, all for free. There's a snack menu where you can get Cheetos and Cracker Jacks and cream soda, all for free, just for asking. There's a board game menu. There's a movie menu allowing you to check out things for free. There are magicians doing tricks in the lobby in the mornings. You could even drop off your laundry. They'll have it done, washed, and folded by the end of the day. And now you're starting to get a feel for how this unassuming place could be the #2 hotel in LA, just ahead of, you see that? The Four Seasons Beverly Hills. What this teaches us is something so important. Great service experiences are mostly forgettable and occasionally remarkable. People are willing to forget a lot of average, a lot of mediocrity, as long as there are some moments that are special. But those moments don't create themselves. And if we don't invest in those remarkable moments, look at what we're left with. If we want to improve the experiences people have, we've got to stop fixing potholes and start building peaks.
Well, I'll stop here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I think turn on my video here. We've got just a few minutes left, but I wanted to thank you guys for enrolling in this class, and wanted to let you know that I'm here to help as you think about infill within your communities. You've got my contact information, and I would love to be able to sit down with each of your ROCs and think about what that looks like for you guys. And so know that you have a resource here in the industry that can help you. And I can get you partnered in with a local facility or a local retailer that could also bring some insight into your situation, which would help you make some decisions.